Well, it has been a long time, Yuna. What? You've been in Japan seeing your mom? Bet that has been special. Yes. How did you guess? I thought of you because I'm preparing a new video about traditions in Japanese deaths and funerals. I was pleased to learn that the Japanese teach children from a young age about death. As our puppet series has shared, it is considered taboo in many cultures and countries, including the U.S., to explain death to a child until it's absolutely necessary. Japanese children learn at a very young age that death is imminent. They're taught to respect their elders as we all move through cycles. There are phases an individual must go through before they can be considered reborn. One's 60th birthday in Japan is a very auspicious time. This is when two zodiacs of the person's birth year align. This is known as kanriki. There are several other changes in spiritual status that follow. These phases upon the path to rebirth are measured in 10-year increments. It is the family's responsibility to make sure that the elder is celebrated at each particular phase so that they can earn that status of rebirth. Obtaining the status of rebirth qualifies them for reincarnation. I've learned that in Japan, there are very few funeral homes. It's the family that keeps the body of the dead person at their home. 90% of all Japanese funerals are Buddhist and Shinto. Have you looked at www.owlcation.com and typed Japanese death right after that? It's written by a woman who spent a lot of time studying U.S. versus Japanese customs. It's really helpful. Another site that helped me was to go to www.japanvisitor.com and then type in Japanese funeral. Did you know the body's washed in the hospital and usually dressed in a suit or a kimono? People gather at the home where the body is taken, and relatives pay their respects, often giving condolence money to the family. There's a wake service where a Buddhist priest gives a reading from a sutra, which is a Buddhist text, while the family will take turns bowing and offering incense at the altar. The immediate family of the deceased stay up with the body overnight, sitting in the same room. The next day there's usually a funeral and the body's taken from the home, which is where the wake was performed, to the Buddhist temple where the funeral is performed. Shinto, the native religion in Japan, is a collection of rituals, including funeral rites. It grew out of the complex cultural history of that whole beautiful area of the world. Buddhist funeral rites were introduced from outside and are meant to help the deceased make a transition from life to afterlife and to reincarnation should it not escape from the cycle of rebirth. The strongest pressure for merging the two traditions came in 1638. That's when all Japanese households were required to register with a temple and say they were members of the Buddhist faith. Ironically, the aim was not to prohibit Shinto practice, but it was really to stamp out Christianity. While Buddhist shrines, called butsudan, were set up in Japanese homes in conformance with that law, many families maintained a Shinto shrine in another room in the house. Currently, almost all Japanese families employ a Buddhist priest after a death and participate in the rituals of that sect. The spirit in which the friends and family approach these rituals, however, reflects Shinto tradition. Almost all of the visitors have rosaries, which they drape over their hands. The person offering incense goes to the urn placed in front of the altar, stands at attention, or sits Japanese style on the cushion in front if the urn is on a low table or on the floor, puts his or her hands together with the rosary around them, and bows. Next, he or she places a pinch of incense on the smoldering incense in the urn after bringing it close to their forehead, and again bows before returning to his or her seat. This is all taking place in the middle of the priest's reading of a sutra. When the funeral ends, the coffin is opened and flowers from the arrangement are given to the family and guests to place in the coffin. In some tradition, the coffin lid is nailed in place at this time. The coffin is then transferred to the crematorium, accompanied by the mourners. The immediate family may repeat the incense burning there. The task of operating the furnace might fall to the closest family member, or it could be done by the crematorium staff. While the fire burns, the close relatives turn to the funeral feast. Next, the relatives assemble in another room where the slab, which is still radiating heat and bearing the remaining bones, is brought. The crematory staff will usually give a kind of guided tour of the bones, pointing out any indicators of disease, effects of medicine, as everyone looks at the deceased body. This is where chopsticks come into a funeral. Yes, I've read a lot about it, and I hope to attend a Japanese funeral in person. But now I'm going to sign off and leave you wondering about the chopsticks. Come back for my next video. I'll give you a call and I'll continue this. Take good care, Yuna. Bye. You listeners, please write in questions so we puppets can continue to help. And please, please subscribe. Thanks.